Coming up, President Trump kicked off his re-election campaign last night in Orlando. We'll take you to the rally. And we'll have a preview of tonight's annual congressional softball game and tell you what the proceeds go to. And an airline serving customers at one Kentucky airport is expanding their services. We'll tell you what's new.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News This Morning.
Good morning, I'm Taylor Upchurch. Today is Wednesday, June 19th. Let's check in with Brandon Robinson for a look at your forecast this morning. Brandon, what can folks expect today?
Well, another soggy mess, unfortunately, Taylor, and we're going to see that off and on throughout the day. We're seeing a little bit of that this morning. Dreary conditions right now outside the WYMT studios here in Hazard. We have had some rain, though, this morning. Let's take a look at the camera, and you can see, again, fog and dreary conditions, cloud cover, no sunshine right now, but there'll probably be some at times during the day. Live pinpoint Doppler radar, a line of showers and storms kind of broken and scattered there from Pulaski County all the way up into parts of Floyd County this morning. Take you on a brief tour there. You see London getting ready to get some pretty good showers there, and up toward Hyman, just north of Hyman there, going back into Floyd County on 80. Also seeing some of that as well. Temperatures in the 60s and 70s this morning. Even Wise now up to 66, 73. Middlesboro, our warm spot. Appcast today. Download that for free, and all the app stores. That'd be a good thing to have today because you'll need to track the rain and possibility for warnings. They pop up instantly on there. You'll see those chances for scattered showers and storms later today as temperatures top out in the low 80s. The rest of the forecast is on the way here in just a few minutes. Taylor?
All right, thank you, Brandon. With a vow to keep America great, President Trump officially kicked off his 2020 campaign in Florida on Tuesday night. CBS's Laura Podesta reports from New York.
Keep America great.
President Trump made it official last night, kicking off his 2020 re-election bid at a packed rally in Orlando.
I stand before you to officially launch my campaign for a second term as President of the United States.
The president hit on some of the same themes he used during his successful 2016 campaign, including illegal immigration.
The Democrat agenda of open borders is morally reprehensible.
The 75-minute speech earned rave reviews from most of the 20,000 in attendance.
What I wanted to hear was 4 more years, and it gives me chills just thinking about it again. It was fantastic.
I thought it was a great beginning to a great re-election campaign. I think he's done an amazing job so far, and the sky's the limit.
One of Mr. Trump's potential 2020 opponents, Senator Bernie Sanders, had a different reaction.
I just had the extremely unpleasant experience of actually watching Donald Trump in action for an hour and a half. Wow. And that was certainly something.
Sanders said the president ignored two of the biggest issues facing the country, climate change and income inequality. Laura Podesta, CBS News.
President Trump stayed overnight in Miami and will attend a fundraiser there before returning to the White House. And in other campaign 2020 news, Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden says his campaign may have raised nearly $20 million since he entered the race. He said 360,000 people have given to his campaign with an average contribution of about $55, adding up to $19.8 million. If the math is right, it's more than any of the Democratic presidential candidates during the first fundraising quarter. And former White House Communications Director Hope Hicks will testify behind closed doors later today. Lawmakers plan to ask her both about her time at the White House and the Trump campaign. A White House official will be present during the interview. Her testimony will mark the first time a member of President Trump's inner circle will appear before the committee during obstruction investigations. And senators have reached a $4.6 billion deal for emergency border funding. The Appropriations Committee's agreement earmarks nearly $3 billion for the Office of Refugee Resettlement. Administration officials told lawmakers that department would be broke within weeks without the infusion. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell wants to put it on the floor next week.
I think everybody is now convinced that we have an emergency at the border, a humanitarian crisis.
On Monday, President Trump tweeted that millions of migrants in the U.S. illegally will start being removed next week. Officials have offered no specific details about the planned immigrant roundup. Meanwhile, Senator McConnell says he's against the idea of paying reparations for slavery. A House committee is set to hold a hearing on that issue later today. But McConnell says people alive today should not be paying compensation for something that happened 150 years ago.
We've, tried to deal with our original sin of slavery by fighting a civil war, by passing landmark civil rights legislation. We've elected an African-American president. I think we're always a work in progress in this country, but no one currently alive was responsible for that.
McConnell also says it will be hard to figure out who should receive compensation. That's because, in his words, quote, waves of immigrants face discrimination after their arrival in this country. And the women of Congress prepared for a showdown with the press yesterday. But as Washington correspondent Kyle Madura reports, this time it's all in good fun.
Democrats and Republicans will share a dugout tonight as they dig into the fight against cancer. The first pitch in tonight's congressional softball game pitting the press corps against Congress is scheduled for 7 o'clock in the East. The game is in its 11th year and raises hundreds of thousands of dollars annually for a charity devoted to helping cancer survivors. The congressional team is looking to break the press's 3-game winning streak.
This year, we have been working so hard. We have been scrimmaging against much younger staffers. So it is really all about developing our skills. We've got a great team this year.
There's an additional rule for this game: no political chatter. Players from both sides of the aisle say that can be a challenge, but they say it also helps build camaraderie on the field and back at their day jobs on Capitol Hill. In Washington, I'm Kyle Madura.
3 freshman lawmakers joined the team this year, but Congress is also without its MVP, Representative Mia Love, after she lost her run for re-election last November. And members of the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 3769 asked for support during the Pike County Fiscal Court meeting yesterday morning. One member is working on a bill that would allow veterans to turn their military skills into accreditation hours. WYMT's Marianne Fletcher explains.
The transition from active military to civilian can be rough.
It's hard to get back on track because military life is completely different than civilian.
According to the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, veterans are nearly twice as likely as non-veterans to take their own lives.
And because you have a world of knowledge and you feel like you have to start with square one as somebody that just graduated high school.
Tuesday, Nathan Sesko with VFW Post 3769 asked the Pike County Fiscal Court for their support in a bill which he believes could change that.
You're in charge of $1 million worth of equipment. Well, you come home and you can't get a job washing cars.
The bill will allow various vocational skills learned in the military to meet regulatory requirements in Kentucky.
I think it's been worded wrong in the past, and that's the reason it's not being pushed forward.
Judge Executive Ray Jones says he has experienced the effects of this firsthand.
Well, my dad's a Vietnam veteran. He's a United States Marine Corps combat veteran. And we've had this discussion when he came back from Vietnam.
While supporting the bill, he hopes it will combat this long-lasting problem.
That's something that's not acceptable, and it's been a problem for decades.
In Pike County, Marianne Fletcher, WYMT Mountain News.
And during that fiscal court meeting, the annual budget was passed. Judge Executive Ray Jones says although the court does not always see eye to eye, they came together to create this budget. He says he's pleased with the outcome.
It's a budget that preserves essential services like our fire departments, funding for our senior citizen centers, and preserves pay and benefits for our county workforce, which was something we were very concerned about having to reduce when we first came into office.
Jones says this budget leaves the necessary funds to keep county essentials while cutting smaller luxuries. And a California utility has agreed to pay $1 billion to settle lawsuits that came in the wake of a deadly wildfire. The government sued the power company for causing the 2018 Camp Fire that killed 85 people and left the town of Paradise in near ruins. An investigation later found PG&E was responsible for the devastation. According to the agreement, $270 million is set aside to help Paradise in its recovery efforts. A bankruptcy court still must approve the settlement. The power company filed for bankruptcy in January. And you have some new flight options if you're planning to fly out of the Cincinnati Northern Kentucky Airport later this year. Frontier Airlines has added 4 new nonstop flights. You can now travel to New Orleans, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Sarasota, Florida. Flights to Florida will begin October 10th and 11th. Service to New Orleans will be added on November 15th. And now let's check in with Brandon Robinson for another look at your weather.
Forecast this morning, scattered showers and storms already rolling around. Not too much in the way of stronger storms this morning, but a lot of heavy rain starting to drift into parts of the area. Live pinpoint Doppler radar, you can see that there near London, coming out of Pulaski County into Laurel County, up into parts of Leslie County and Knott County going over that way. So we're going to continue to watch that this morning. Temperatures climbing 66 wise to about 73 there at Middlesboro. Lots of folks there in the upper 60s and low 70s. Your out the door forecast features more chances for scattered showers and storms, and some of those could be on the stronger side. So we'll keep a very close eye on that for you later today. Taylor.
All right, thank you, Brandon, and thank you for joining us on Mountain News this morning. We'll have a pet in our studio from the Floyd County Animal Shelter coming up next.